What's kind of the origin of MegaETH?
Sure.
Suspense, yeah.
Suspense, man.
Don't lie to us right now.
It's called MegaETH. I feel like it's very clear that we're mega bullish on Ethereum.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the roll-up. Welcome to a chain abstraction palooza where we just wrapped up an epic one-day marathon in the heart of New York City, diving deep into chain abstraction with some of the top teams in crypto. Trust me, this series is packed with insights, laughs, and a few surprises you won't want to miss. Shout out to Omni Network for helping to put this together with their upcoming mainnet soon, targeting the interoperability and UX problem that we're currently facing in the Ethereum and modular ecosystem. We really enjoyed this series and looking forward to putting all of this content out there. Let's jump right into today's episode after a quick word from some of our awesome partners who make this possible. Welcome aboard on our journey into the singularity. This is the endgame roadmap for Frax and Fraxtal, the new L2 out of the Frax ecosystem that is totally based on fractal scaling. Fraxtal is a modular L2 blockchain built by Frax with modular and fractal scaling in mind. Fractal scaling is based on the Mandelbrot set of fractal images, and it explains how L2s become L3s and the entire app chain lifecycle goes through its evolution. The Frax ecosystem is made of some of the top builders in the space and has stemmed from its OG days of the Frax stablecoin. It is now in the LST space, the LRT space, and this Fraxtal L2 joins the existing suite of Frax products, including Frax Swap and Frax Lend. You can see Frax Ferry, the bridge to go from any chain, Arbitrum, Optimism, or mainnet into the Fraxtal mainnet. Bridge your tokens and bring your Frax assets into the Fraxtal ecosystem. Join today to get the best out of Fraxtal. You are still early. Join today. Take part in our expedition into the singularity. Covalent is solving the long-term data availability problem where a lot of the data availability providers today in the modular space, when you post data to them, they actually only hold that data for about 12 to 16 days. And then it's basically, it could go into an archive node, or oftentimes it's just kind of put away into the abyss. And what Covalent's trying to do is build this long-term data availability solution, which can plug into some of these modular data availability providers and provide this longer-term perpetual data solution. So what we try to think of this as is when you post transaction data onto Celestio or Veil or any of these modular DA solutions or even Ethereum, Covalent is able to provide a long-term data storage and data availability platform for that data after the time period. Blockchains are billboards, not databases, and we need these providers in the space to be able to kind of hold on to the long-term data that is provided from these providers and these blockchain state. This is where Covalent comes in. They just had a nice rebrand. Check them out on Twitter as well as the website. Thank you for being here. Hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, live in New York City. Austin's wearing his Milady shirt, which is pretty based if you ask me. And your pants are insane.
Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know where you got those from.
Little shop in London called Skrit. I feel like I should become a brand ambassador at this point.
Okay. What is your accent, by the way?
Well, I've been told it's a mixture between New York and London, but I'm actually Azerbaijani Turkish Cypriot. So Cyprus, small island between Greece and Turkey, and Azerbaijan, which is like a relatively small country between like Russia, Georgia, Armenia, Iran. So yeah, that's me.
Nice. I think I matched with a girl on Tinder from Azerbaijan or Hinge.
Beautiful. She's probably beautiful, yeah.
Anyway, so what's your backstory into MegaETH? You're building MegaETH. What's your role at MegaETH? How'd you get to MegaETH? What's going on?
Yeah, I'll give a quick TLDR. So basically got into crypto around 2020, was working on a privacy solution at the time, which had not in crypto, had relatively decent PMF, but retail end users could not care less about their data. So I started going down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out why. Was able to get in touch with Tim Berners-Lee's office, and they basically said his biggest regret ever with the web was not creating a native money layer to the internet. So I'm like, interesting. At that point, I'm working with Dubbing on this non-crypto privacy solution. And I'm talking to her and she's like, yo, crypto solves this. I'm like, Okay.
You're talking to Da Bing, who was working on MegaETH right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I've known Chia for a very long time.
Okay.
And we're working on this thing. She's like, crypto solves this. I get down the rabbit hole. Most of 2020, 2021, doing a lot of like DeFi, NFT DAO stuff. Mostly like as an individual, contributing to a few DAOs here or there. Realized it's all super centralized, does not really work. And went to the venture side. So joined a venture fund, was there for a bit over a year, focusing on like the modular blockchain thesis, mostly infrastructure, a lot of cross-chain stuff as well. It was lots of fun. Was still in college and was like, okay, let me like max out as many skill trees as possible, even though I was by no means maxing out the venture side. Went to do liquids, so I joined a prop shop in New York, was trading through the depths of the bear, and ended up deciding to join Consensus to work more with Brother Bing. And that was lots of fun. Was doing strategy and BD, primarily on MetaMask and Linea, trying to figure out like what can be done that's very cool. And then MegaETH popped up, and yeah, I joined alongside Shuao, part of the founding team. And you know, what do I do exactly is a bit of a question, but it's mostly heading growth, a lot of strategy, and just like vibes.
Tell me, MegaETH popped up. How did it pop up? What's kind of the origin of MegaETH?
Sure.
Suspense. Yeah.
Suspense, man. So effectively what happened was Elon was doing his PhD in low latency compute at Stanford. And he's like probably top 15, top 16 in the world when it comes to this very particular vertical. Working with like data centers and shit. Goes to Alphabet, goes to Meta, like, yo, like, look at all this cool stuff. And they're like, dude, this is a bit too far advanced. Like, there's nothing we can do here. And his only other option was to become a high frequency trader. And he's just not that guy. So started learning about blockchain, started learning about the power of blockchains, and as well as like the deep inefficiencies between, like these systems are just like not optimized. Like just simply said, they're not optimized. So he then gets in touch with Lei, who's one of our other co-founders, also our CTO, who was studying basically high-performance networking at MIT for his PhD. A little bit of lore, he actually co-wrote the famous data availability white paper with Shiram from Eigen. So yeah, they basically start jamming, come up with this very particular architecture, which is MegaETH. Happy to walk you guys through it as well. I like to give a very simple, pragmatic what's this word?
Explanation?
Yeah, you see, English isn't my first language.
Yeah.
A very simple explanation of how MegaETH is truly structured. And they come up with this basic architecture. And then they're like, okay, how do we productize this? How do we create like 0-to-1 applications? How do we create an ecosystem? And that's where myself and Brother Bing came in.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, MegaETH. MegaETH. What actually is it? It's first real-time blockchain. Is that the meme of it?
Yeah.
But is it an L2? Is it an L1? Like, help us understand what actually it is.
100%. So first and foremost, MegaETH is a blockchain, right? It's an environment for people to integrate and interact in a peer-to-peer network. The way we're able to reach this level of performance, which is 100K TPS, 1 millisecond block times, is by inheriting the security of Ethereum, right? What has actually changed in the design space landscape over the past couple of years? Well, a lot of really smart people have worked on fraud proofs, and a lot of really smart people have worked on like this escape hatch, right? And I think in our opinion, that is the new information which entered the market, and that allowed us to build the most performant possible environment. So yes, we're layer 2 in the way that we inherit Ethereum security, and we're able to create this extremely performant environment.
But I've also just heard that you guys are, like the rumor mill amongst the VCs is that you guys are transitioning to an L1, that you guys are ditching Ethereum.
Yeah, so this is like fundamentally impossible, right? Because it's a great question, right? Like I've been asked this before. Are you going to abandon Ethereum?
Yeah, you guys are.
I have no idea how this, we're called
Dude,
MegaETH.
don't lie to us right now.
It's called MegaETH. I feel like it's very clear that we're mega bullish on Ethereum. But let me explain to you why, right? I think this is a good question because a lot of L2s could become L1s. A lot of these L2s, what they're benefiting from is the fact that they're able to leverage Ethereum's liquidity, they're able to leverage Ethereum's user base, and get a level of money and activity which they just would not have been able to get as their own ecosystem, right? The difference is that MegaETH, we're able to leverage this, achieve this level of performance solely because we're built on Ethereum, right? Like, how does MegaETH work? We basically said this guarantee of ETH decentralization allows us to go back to the first principles for what a blockchain should look like. So, most nodes are homogeneous, right? On most L1s that you can think of, including Ethereum. What that means is one node will do all of the tasks associated with a blockchain. The issue is, these tasks are fundamentally very fucking different, and they want different kinds of outcomes. So by inheriting Ethereum security, we can say, you know what, instead of having one node that is both validation and sequencing, why don't we, in execution, why don't we have one node that is amazing at sequencing and execution? And that means we're centralizing block production, which we think is fine, because we're able to inherit Ethereum security. So what we do is we hyper-optimize the hardware, we hyper-optimize the software, and we make like a match made in heaven. That's how we're able to hit this level of performance. Imagine way, way, way beefier than Solana. But on the other end, we're able to build a validator and prover node architecture, which is way, way lighter than Ethereum, right? And does a subset of the sequences transactions. So our architecture is built by taking the security and decentralization of Ethereum as a given. If MegaETH was to become an L1, it would just become any other L1.
So MegaETH is not going to become an L1?
MegaETH is not going to become an L1 because then we're not going to be the most performant possible blockchain.
You're not going to be MegaETH at that point.
We're not going to,
You're just
yeah,
gonna be
also
Mega.
what, we have to rebrand? Come on.
Yeah, I mean,
I love the name.
I think the "Make Ethereum Great Again" is a cool tagline, but it also is significant. It also like alludes that Ethereum is not great now. Something to think about.
We can talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about it. But first, are you guys confirmed using EigenDA?
Yes.
Nice. And what's the thought process there versus Celestia or Veil?
I mean, firstly, I love Celestia. I love Veil. I love everybody, right? Yeah. We're friends of everybody. I think for us, EigenDA makes the most sense, right? Lei has a very strong intrinsic understanding of the stack. We work very, very closely with Eigen. We work very closely with EigenDA. And we have a similar strategy on how to kind of scale blockchains. So there's a deep ideological and technical overlap. Like we have engineers that are collaborating already. So pretty deep integration.
So does EigenDA or any of these DA teams provide large financial support to integrate?
Well, what do you mean? Like, are they paying us to
like, is there
integrate?
grants or like, is there certain systems that are in place, or is it just really a tech thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are lots of grants that Eigen does. There's a lot of things that going on about Eigen today. The reason we use Eigen is for the tech.
Cartesia is your home for app-specific rollups. At the forefront of developing new tools and platforms that enhance the capabilities of blockchain technology, Cartesia enables applications that are flexible and built to scale. Build on a full Linux environment and use traditional software libraries, but in blockchain development. Go to cartesia.io, that's cartesia.io, to learn more about building your own app chain today.
Everclear is pioneering the clearing layer. The clearing layer can almost be thought of as splitwise when you go on a trip with friends, but for the blockchain. What I mean by that is when users are sending cross-chain messages, there's oftentimes fillers and solvers who have balances left on different chains that they need to rebalance and reset their positions. This is where Everclear comes in. Everclear is pioneering a collaborative approach to the chain abstraction future, and they are willing to work with interoperability partners, solvers, and other providers in the space to build a interoperable and chain abstraction future. Check out Everclear at everclear.org, and welcome back to the Rollup.
Okay, one interesting design trend, and I feel like from what you said previously, I maybe know where your head is at on this, but you're totally right in the sense that these things have been under-optimized. Like we kind of over the past 7 years have been trying to make things work. Simply put, not necessarily like make them work well and in a performance sense. I think it was Monad that was the first over the past, that's really the first one that I saw come up that's like, we really, really care about performance. Maybe you could say Solana, but at least in the Ethereum, EVM world, Monad, Say was talking about this as well. How do you guys conceptualize the differences between the work that you're doing, Monad, Say, some of these other just fundamental optimization, parallelization protocols? Does it come down to your relationship with Ethereum, or is there something else that people should
I think it's a great question, right? So there are optimizations you can do on the L1, and you can create a more optimized L1, which is really cool.
Which you're not doing.
Which we're not doing, because we're not a layer one.
Confirming again.
Yeah, but what we're really focused on is how do you create the most performant blockchain imaginable? Because in our opinion, like what's Solana doing right now? Like 3K TPS, not enough. 10K TPS on Monad, not enough, right? When you look at really deeply understand the MegaETH architecture, you'll realize we are truly bound only by hardware. So we can continue to scale linearly with hardware and become even more performant, increase the capacity of MegaETH even further, right? I think another one is like, what kind of performance are we talking about, right? We're really bullish on single-threaded performance, right? Because yeah, we do parallelization as part of our optimizations too, but parallelization doesn't necessarily increase the capability of the kind of application that can exist. It can increase the capacity of the kind of application. So for us, it's really a game of like latency enables net new applications, and to reach this level of latency and this level of performance, you simply can't do it as a layer one. And MegaETH is performance first, buzzword later, second, I guess. Like.
Okay. I feel like we have fallen into this kind of funny reality. I think things will be far more clear 5 years from now. But in order to develop the first rollups, it had to be a rollup. I think the most clear case of this is OP Mainnet, where they built a rollup, but they have now moved to a point where they're actively tweeting like, optimism is not OP Mainnet, optimism is the superchain. And especially with Polygon and ZK Sync talking about shared bridge contracts, I feel like the world in 5 years is going to be shared bridge contracts, and rollups might look more comparable to a server. So are you building a rollup, or are you building like Linux that people will run on EC2s, kind of like in that parallel world? Are people going to be running their own MegaETHs, or is there going to be a MegaETH?
Yeah, I think that to borrow from the wise friends over at Solana, MegaETH is building a global state machine.
Okay.
Yeah.
One rollup.
One rollup.
Not a million rollups.
All right. You said you wanted to make this spicy. Can I make it spicy?
Let's go for it.
All right. So one reason I care about building in the Ethereum ecosystem, and this sounds very like there is a ton of ideological alignment with your team and the Ethereum ecosystem. One huge issue I have is that 43% of blocks today are censored on the ETH L1 network because block production is outsourced to just literally a handful of parties.
Yeah.
If you have a single node and you're talking about really juicing block production, does that not degrade the whole point of Ethereum? Do you not lose censorship resistance with that?
Yeah, I mean, Ethereum is more decentralized than MegaETH.
Yes.
I agree. And I think that we're not trying to pretend that's not the case. We think performance and decentralization fundamentally do not go hand in hand. It's not very hard. It's like impossible to create an environment which can scale with like Web 2 levels of adoption, right? And also things in Web 2 become more computationally intensive every single year as well. We think that there are 3 guarantees which MegaETH is able to give its users, which is sufficient, right? The first one is proofs, fraud proofs, right? Make sure the sequencer is not wilding out. The second is escape hatch. If we go malicious, your ETH is safe. I think that's so powerful. Right? I don't think people will index on how powerful that is. It's very, very strong. And thirdly, we're going to enable people to rotate the sequencer. Right? So there'll be a rotational sequencer architecture where not one person is king of the castle forever.
So yeah, I mean that works. Some of the censorship resistant properties out, but I think like the core of it, like the crux of it, why Arbitrum just posted their roadmap, including sequencer decentralization, why teams are working to that is that's the only way to like get true censorship resistance. I think as far as the centralization for MegaETH, they've got like, from what I understand, it's like decentralized block validation, centralized block production. I think that's kind of like the thesis. But if an entity wanted to shut any centralized sequencer L2 down, they could.
Vertex Edge is now live on Say Network. Say users can now trade 50 plus spot and perp markets with the unified order book liquidity of Vertex Edge across Arbitrum, Blast, Mantle, and Say. The next 6 weeks, 850,000 Say tokens will be up for grabs as trading rewards every single week, exclusively on Say. Join Vertex on Say Network now on Vertex Edge. That's vertexprotocol.com.
Mantle is a layer 2 blockchain with one of the biggest on-chain treasuries in all of crypto, and they have a 100-day campaign called Metamorphosis live now. What this is it is a campaign for their liquid staked ETH token, METH, as well as their upcoming liquid restaking token, CMETH, where you can utilize this token on the Mantle network in a variety of different apps, some of your favorite restaking protocols and DeFi protocols, and earn yields in the form of powder, which will eventually be turning into a governance token. Mantle's been around for a while. We like them because they use their own form of EigenDA. They have a good ecosystem and they're growing. So check out this 100-day metamorphosis campaign, and hope you guys enjoy the rest of this video.
I can touch on a couple of things you guys mentioned here, right?
Well,
so go for it.
Just to kind of like clarify the things here, liveness is a concern downstream. Liveness is its own property. Like, make sure it's still up there and people can do the 100,000 TPS. Censorship resistance, though, is an alternative thing where it's independent of liveness, and it's just that anybody across the world can get whatever they want to post to something. I'm not asking you to have an answer to this because, frankly, the entire Ethereum research community doesn't have an answer to this currently. And it's something that is just, I don't know, kind of sad to see. And I'm not saying like that I have the solution by any means, but it's just like I've built in the Ethereum ecosystem for so long, and seeing that just like a handful of actors are able to censor transactions at this point, definitely, especially with Ethereum's business model being in question, like, is the ultrasound money the thing, or is it not? Like, yeah, I just think it's like something that is kind of an existential like question for Ethereum at large.
On L1, I fully agree this is a big problem, right? On the L2, it's kind of what Andy referenced, right? Maximally centralized block production, maximally decentralized block validation is the general strategy, and it's kind of what Vitalik wrote in his 2021 Endgame article, right? And for us, we think like, yes, one sequencer might be shut down, but that's why we're having rotational sequencer architecture, where at any point in time, like let's say from a block interval mechanism, model, you have different sequencers running at different times. For us, like, and yes, part of the Arbitrum roadmap is decentralization of the sequencers. That's when we have performance degradation. When you bring consensus among sequencers into the game, that's when you lose the level of performance that MegaETH says, and that's why we're never going to ban Ethereum. We're actually, our roadmap is ETH.
Yeah, and I think like the difference here between the L2s that are doing this, like MegaETH, versus like the L1s, like Monad say, is that I feel that these L1s that are super high performant eventually are just going to have to choose in some capacity, do we centralize more to scale harder, to scale to more throughput? Whereas I think in this case, you have that Ethereum level security for the settlement. And so the question is less of a centralizing the, I guess it's more of a hardware question, right, than it is a, do we centralize the nodes, because there really is only one sequencer. Yes, you're moving it around, rotating it, but it's more of like how much do we boost the hardware?
Yeah, exactly.
Less so how much do we constrict the number of nodes to basically fight like light propagation and latency.
Yes, yeah, and if you're able to effectively decouple the node that does like obviously production validation, right, the idea isn't that everyone in the world should run a sequencer. Like that's not the vision we see.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
And it's just like, it's not pragmatic.
Right.
But we do want absolutely everybody to be able to run a prover node.
Yeah, I think it's even, I totally agree with you in that it's not pragmatic to have everybody doing it. I think even Ethereum, like the path it's going down, like solo staking is becoming very difficult. Yeah. Even with like peer DAS like getting shipped. Like, have you guys seen Peter from the EF kind of going on rants on Twitter about like, this is like, I feel like this guy worked on this stuff for like 7 years, and now the whole dream of just solo stakers across the world being able to run nodes is kind of disappearing in front of him, and he's freaking out about it a bit, like rationally, in my opinion. So I'm totally with you on the design principle there. And I also really like that you're kind of taking a stance like, no, there is MegaETH. There is not, you don't get your own MegaETH, there is everybody's MegaETH. That is one vision that I think Solana has had for a while, and it makes complete sense, where the way Anatoly can communicate it to people really resonates with like HFT people who like actually work in like traditional high performance financial system.
You know, it's interesting, like we can talk a bit about the ETH1 stuff because I find it to be fascinating. The way I kind of, mentally, like my mental framework for how these L1s operate is like, and again, this is going to be like repeating what everyone's been saying, but there's like all these trade-off curves that you need to make. And Ethereum decided to like really, really settle on like being the most decentralized possible Turing complete, layer one, right? And then the success of Solana, by basically saying, hey, we want something more performant, has brought a lot of conversations of should we jack up the hardware requirements, right? Like should we kind of make this not as inclusive to like a solo staker or anyone who's just trying to participate in the layer one. And I think the reason why it feels this much pressure is because there is no answer for performance. And that's what I hope MegaETH can solve, right? If MegaETH is able to come and say, the reason because I get asked this question a lot, like why Ethereum, why not Sol, why not like, some L1 that hasn't even launched yet? And the reason is because Ethereum is the most decentralized layer one, and that allows us to make these design trade-offs to go performance first. So like, my uneducated wish is that hopefully in the short-term future, right, when MegaETH is live, and we have all kinds of super cool applications being built on MegaETH, guys. Like these are applications which, when you first got into crypto, you got in because of the dream of like a peer-to-peer app, not because of meme coin trading, I assume. We're having really cool stuff being built on MegaETH because of the latency, because of the throughput. And my hope is that effectively, like we will be able to allow Ethereum and all of the noise around the Ethereum L1 roadmap to kind of settle down, being like, hey, we should actually remain in our market positioning as the most decentralized layer one, because I think that's immensely powerful. And the second you lose it, it's a rat's race to like centralization.
What's the meme, like chasing two rabbits at once? Like you're not going to catch either.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, your point is like basically you can just optimize rollups now for maximum scale, rely on Ethereum for security. We shouldn't be building rollups that are under 50K TPS, under 100K TPS, under 10K TPS anymore. We should just go for scale and basically use Ethereum, which kind of started on what you were saying there in the beginning about how we've built a lot of tech, but we haven't really built it for like the most optimized version of it. You mentioned kind of like when MegaETH goes live. I feel like you guys have an interesting kind of setup where you have this deeply embedded research background, and then like Brother Bing and like the way that you guys push this cultural level of marketing is very like almost like Zoomer, almost like in the now crypto native.
I'm a Zoomer, so that checks out.
But like the Bing is also like somewhat like, she will push the flames on Twitter. Especially recently, she pushed some shit on Twitter that was like pretty aggressive.
It's so interesting that was not. We got a lot of messages.
Yeah,
like,
that was pretty aggressive, but.
But it wasn't against other like builders.
But it came off that way.
I know, but it wasn't against other builders. It was about like there's a lot of VCs that LARP in this space.
Correct.
Like,
there's a lot of LARPers.
There's a lot of LARPers. It was just to the LARPers saying like, hey, you're going to get mogged, basically. Which was definitely.
This is what I mean though. And so you're talking about MegaETH coming live, and I'm saying, okay, I feel like the structure that you guys have for approaching your like marketing is going well because you have this strong research foundation, but also the whole community is waiting for something to try out, right? There's a lot of like, we're gonna mog you.
So is question when mainnet?
So the question is, what is the development, and like when can I try this kind of system?
Yeah, so we're hoping for October for testnet, and then January for mainnet.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
And so
that's pretty quick to development timeline for sure.
Yeah, I mean, inshallah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, cool. So that'll be the chance for users to kind of jump on, like those in the audience watching this, who want to, try out the chain, etc.
Yeah, I mean,
awesome.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Kind of switching gears, like pulling out of the technical and getting us into more of some of the economics of your ecosystem. So a couple of things here, like I've been like vocally like kind of like, okay guys, we don't really need any more EVM L2s, like basic like Arbitrum forks, Optimism forks. These general purpose L2s are a lot of work to spin up. They cost a lot of money. They're not really going to accrue much value. App chains are going to rule, or basically next gen VM or high TPS L2s. On the contrary, I've also been saying, okay, yes, this is right, but we also need to like figure out ways to give builders of apps sequencer revenue such that they stay on MegaETH in this case, or on other chain, and not leave and launch their own app chain. Yeah. And there's other composability benefits and network effects that MegaETH could have, but like how are you approaching sequencer revenue? How are you approaching app builders, distributions of value, and how are you going to attract and keep builders on MegaETH instead of them accruing value to MegaETH sequencer? Yeah. you guys making the money and then them being like, screw this, I'm out. I'm going to launch my own chain.
Sure. So I think there's a lot of stuff to go
There's
over
a lot
there.
here, yeah.
So I want to actually start
It's like
with
8 questions there.
We'll answer every single one.
All right.
So I want to start with the EVM point, right? I think the EVM has the most public good work and like literature written around it, right? And it's like next gen VMs is in a lot of ways like, let's first optimize the EVM before we start chilling like, oh, let's just go back to zero with all of the public goods, technical work, technical literature that's been provided, right? So our thesis is that the EVM itself is fine, right? You can create optimizations to make an environment which is highly performant, right? And that's what MegaETH is doing. So I think that's the first point. The second point is like our relationships with our builders, basically, right? Sequencers make money. In either world, if you have a highly efficient sequencer, i.e. like our block times, and you're using like EigenD8, sequencers should not be making all of this crazy money, right? The reason why people build on MegaETH is not because they're like, oh, you know what, I'm just gonna go to whichever chain gives me like the fattest grant. The reason people build on MegaETH is because they're building applications that can only exist on MegaETH. These are applications that can become multi-billion-dollar businesses because they can bring in net new users. MegaETH brings the performance of Web 2 with the crypto economics and peer-to-peer networks of Web 3. That is ridiculously powerful, right? If we're going to bring in any users, it's not going to be because like, you know, we've come up with like a fun little tagline. It's because like you have really good apps that bring users in and they don't know what's going on. They don't know what chain is being run. Like I don't want like an end user that's leveraging MegaETH to know that they're using MegaETH. Just like I don't know what like a computer, like I don't know what my computer is using for like RAM.
I was going to ask about like your take on chain abstraction at large. I know we think about this a ton. And I think there's a number of things you could say, but you almost kind of like answered it there where you are extremely focused on the developers themselves building applications that could only be built on something like MegaETH. And so it almost like doesn't matter if chain abstraction like wins or not because there is that like moat on the developer. Is that kind of how you all are thinking?
I wouldn't even say I focus on devs, I focus on founders, right? I focus on people who want to build the next generation of the internet, right? And I think we've lost this over the past few years. Like that's how Andy and I initially met. Like there was a lot of optimism around like you can build more equitable world using crypto. And now we've devolved into like watching like crazy fucked up live streams on pump.fun. By the way, I think it's a great product, right? But like, you know, that is not going to be the future of our industry, by the way. It's sick.
Awesome stream.
Yeah, like it's cool, but I don't think it's chief, right?
So chain abstraction to you is like, it's like, maybe it's important to bring new users from other roll-up ecosystems, but for you, it's like...
I'm not focusing on existing crypto users.
But do you believe in the idea of abstracting away gas and multi-chain complexities?
I think like gas abstraction is great.
Okay. Is there gas abstraction on MegaETH?
Yeah, we'll have like
paymasters or something?
Yeah, 100%.
At the app level or at the sequencer level?
Yeah, I believe it's going to be on the app level.
Cool.
So ultimately though, like what do you really need for a really great gas abstraction? You need consistency, right?
Of gas prices, right?
Of gas prices, because someone is paying for that gas somewhere. And that paymaster is going to be thrown out of whack really quickly if like, you know, the price of gas is spiking. It's absurd. So like our focus is on creating the most stable, the most performant environment for really be able to build really cool things on top of it, right? And we have really cool builders. Yeah, we have like insane DeFi stuff, right? Which is sick. And I love DeFi. But we have a lot of really fascinating consumer experiences that would break any other chain. We have deep-in solutions that would literally could not work anywhere else, and they have been tried in other places, but because of the block times on MegaETH, it's now feasible because there's no performance degradation with Web 2 counterpart. Any application in crypto needs to reach feature parity with their Web 2 counterpart for it to even matter.
Yeah, for it to be
and
close.
No application in crypto has feature parity with their Web 2 counterpart, and that's why we're stuck trading meme coins.
Is this on DevNet right now, what you're speaking about? Deep in things? Is this
we have
DevNet?
a private DevNet.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the questions that I have. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
100%. Dude, yeah, it was a pleasure, guys.
Great.